Trustee Nixon, Dean Lee, graduates, and distinguished guests, especially the families and friends of today's graduates, thank you for the honor and privilege of addressing you. As I prepared my remarks for this evening, I was led to wonder about commencement ceremonies, and in particular, when they became a part of our academic tradition. I decided to conduct a bit of research on the topic and learned that there are differing opinions as to when and where the modern-day commencement ceremony began. One source claims that commencement ceremonies date back to the year 1432 at Oxford University, while another source purports that degree ceremonies originated in the 11th century in the medieval universities of Paris. Regardless of their origin, we come together at commencement ceremonies like ours this evening to recognize the accomplishments of the students who have worked so diligently to earn their degrees, and at the same time, we honor those who have supported them in their endeavors. I deliver my comments this evening with this dual intent. I want you to know that I'm a fan of Dave Ramsey, the money management guru, and his principles. The reason for his appeal to me is the no-nonsense approach he advocates for attaining financial self-reliance. Namely, that it takes hard work, sacrifice, and total focus to properly manage your fiscal resources. Dave has a motto that goes like this: if you will live like no one else now, later you can live like no one else. He explains his motto in this way: it's my way of reminding you that if you will make the sacrifices now that most people are unwilling to make, later on you will be able to live as those folks will never be able to live. Now, you may not agree with his philosophy as it relates to money management, and I respect that, but I hope that you will indulge me as I share my thoughts about his principles: hard work, sacrifice, and total focus applied to the efforts that tonight's graduates made to earn their degrees. I know what it took for you to complete your classes over the years. I know of the hard work, including late nights and early mornings, sick children, and demanding jobs. I know of the times when you wished that the day consisted of a few extra hours just so you could get everything done. I know of the sacrifices that you and your loved ones who supported you made during these times. I also know that if your focus had wavered even one bit during this quest, that you might not be sitting here this evening. The reason I know of these things is that I experienced them too, and not so long ago. Let me explain. I am the youngest of 8 children. By any socioeconomic standard, my family ranked among the most disadvantaged in this country. As new immigrants to the United States in the 1960s, we sought work in the farm fields of southern Missouri as a way to supplement my father's scant income as a farm worker. This type of employment was his only option, given that he was barely allowed to complete first grade as a child in Mexico. My mother was a bit more fortunate in that she was permitted to complete third grade before being required to leave school permanently to help at home. In Missouri, my family picked cotton, hoed soybeans, and harvested onions and strawberries after school and on the weekends. Summer vacations were spent in the hot, dusty fields, where the only upside was at the end of August, when we returned to school, my sun-tanned skin was far darker than any of my fellow students. When I was 8 years old, my father was disabled by cancer and could no longer endure the hard physical labor of the farm. As a result, my family was evicted from the home we were provided by the owner of the farm. After all, it was needed for the family of the healthy farm laborer who had been hired to replace my father. With no place to live, we made our way to southern Idaho, to a small rural town called Buell, and here it was that we sought for some permanence. The familiar routine of school and work soon ensued, with summers spent primarily hoeing sugar beets in the surrounding fields. On one particularly hot day, the beet field seemed endless, and the rows that my brother and I were hoeing side by side were at least 10 miles long. At least that's how they felt to me. My brother's rows of beets were separated from mine by about 10 rows because my parents and other family members, with their superior stamina and hoeing skill, had already left us far behind. The dust stirred by the listless wind gathered mercilessly in my throat, conspiring to choke me, while the pain in my calloused hands reminded me that the day was only halfway over. In this moment of despair, I leaned my forehead on the handle of the hoe to rest just for a few seconds, and I vividly remember saying, almost yelling to myself inside my head, "You will not spend the rest of your life doing this." As this thought crossed my mind, I noticed that my brother was taking a break just like me at the exact same moment. Nearly 30 years after that day, I asked my brother in a quiet moment if he recalled that time in the middle of the hot, dusty southern Idaho beet field. Without hesitation, he said, "Of course I do. That was the moment I promised myself that I would not hoe beets for the rest of my life." When we moved to Idaho, my father and mother switched roles as breadwinner and homemaker. My mother obtained employment at the local fish hatchery and trout processing plant, while my father stayed at home to attend to the cooking, washing, cleaning, and nurturing. In retrospect, this was an extremely fortunate turn of events for me and my siblings, and this is why. I remember that when my brothers and sisters and I came home from school, my father was always there to greet us with a smile on his face and an apron around his waist. On the stove was a pot of just cooked pinto beans, along with a fresh, warm stack of flour tortillas. The table adjacent to the kitchen was completely cleared except for a clean, white bed sheet that pulled double duty as a tablecloth. Our father would direct us to serve ourselves a snack and then sit at the table to do our homework. That may not seem extraordinary, but keep in mind that he had never studied one bit of English grammar, or American history, or chemistry, or algebra. Nevertheless, he was fervent about one thing and was completely committed to ensuring it, that his children would not live their lives doing the backbreaking work in which the better years of his life had been spent. What's more, he was savvy enough to understand that a good education was the key to success in this country, and he was not about to let that opportunity slip past his children. With this type of support in our lives and that of many other caring people, including teachers, neighbors, church members, and school administrators, every one of my brothers and sisters and I went on to graduate from high school. All of us then went on to college, and one now owns his own business. Another retrofits refineries. Two are nurses, one is a high school teacher, and another is a physical therapist. And then there's me. In spite of the support that I received from others to succeed in school, and despite the fact that I was nearly a straight-A student throughout my elementary, junior high, and high school years, I would not have gone on to college were it not for the watchful, concerned eye of one community member in our small town, to whom I am forever indebted. Here's this part of my story. After I graduated from high school, I continued working at the local grocery store as a stock clerk and cashier. I felt good about being able to support myself and help my family with some extra income. One afternoon in early September, Larry Olson, a longtime resident of the town of Buell, and one of the many wonderful people who had befriended my family, came into the grocery store. As he passed by the aisle where I was stocking shelves with items, Larry abruptly turned into the aisle and stopped his cart just inches away from me. With a stern and bothered look on his face, he stared at me and asked, "What are you doing here?" My initial reaction was to reply that it was rather obvious that I was working, but before I could articulate this reply, his next statement silenced any intention of mine to speak. "You're not supposed to be here," he stated emphatically, and without another word, wheeled the grocery cart in the opposite direction and left me to puzzle and wonder about the encounter. It was not until about a month later that I understood what had happened. Again, Larry came into the store, and this time, with purpose, looked for me until he found me. No surprise, I was stocking shelves again. He came directly up to me and, like before, stopped his shopping cart just inches from my face. As I rose from my kneeling position to greet him, he said nothing, but reached into his coat pocket and thrust a white envelope toward me. I realized that he intended for me to take it, and so I did. It was addressed to me, and I noticed that the sender was Brigham Young University Office of Admissions. I opened the envelope, unfolded the letter, and read, "Congratulations, you have been admitted to Brigham Young University for spring semester 1983. We look forward to you joining our university community." The letter went on to notify me that I had also been awarded a scholarship. I'm sure that words cannot begin to describe the look of shock on my face, and I can only vaguely remember hearing Larry say, "You only have a few months to get ready to go," as he turned and walked away. That was how my journey toward a college education commenced. Although the door had been opened, the trek toward successful completion of my college education was not any easier for me than it has been for you graduates. Like some of you, I earned my bachelor's degree as a married student with 2 young boys of my own while working nearly full-time at a law firm in downtown Salt Lake City. I went to class and studied early in the morning, played with my sons after work, spent some time with my wife, and after they had all gone to bed, studied until I was too tired to think. Nearly every day for the next 13 years found me repeating this cycle. As I made it to law school, chose to make a course correction after 1 year of legal education, and eventually completed my doctorate in higher education policy and administration from the University of Minnesota. I completed my coursework and wrote my dissertation while continuing to work full-time, and not only did my 2 sons demand my attention along the way, but so did 2 precious daughters that had blessed our family. The steadying hand of my dear wife kept our family on track as I upheld my dual commitment to my studies and to make time for her and our children. Again, I studied in the early and late hours of each day, plus a half Saturday, while devoting my Saturday afternoons and Sundays to them and other personal commitments. I'm not sure if it was the strain of these efforts to earn my degrees or the strong aversion to the memory of working in the farm fields, but I never lost sight of how good I really had it. After all, I was privileged to be able to work at a desk with a computer in a climate-controlled environment. I had no reason whatsoever to complain. I share my personal story with you this evening because I know that you know what it's like to work hard, to sacrifice, and to stay totally focused on a goal that is so worthwhile. I know that you know what it's like to deny yourself many of the simple pleasures of life because you have a paper to write or equations to solve. I know that you know what it's like to spend time with your children or loved ones while the weight of an assignment deadline rests heavily upon your shoulders. I know that you know what it's like to experience failures and despair along the way. But I also know that you know what it's like to be successful, to realize that all the hard work, the sacrifice, and the focus have finally paid off. You've made it, and no one will ever be able to take this accomplishment away from you. The word commencement means to begin, and here you are about to close the door to an incredibly important and meaningful chapter of your life, and to begin the next chapter by opening another door, a door that will undoubtedly lead to a rich variety of experiences and other growth. A door that will be the gateway to many marvelous opportunities for you to be of service to others and to bless their lives. Your educational attainment has given you the credentials, the knowledge, and the experience to do just that. The only question that remains is, will you make full use of the learning and the skills that you have sacrificed so much to gain, or won't you? I am completely confident that you will, and I wish you all the best in doing so.